Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are going straight to the very core of how we communicate digitally. If you rely on email, and let's be honest, that's absolutely everyone, everywhere, you are now dealing with what a lot of analysts are calling the crisis of trust in digital communications.
Yeah,
This isn't just about, clearing out your spam folder anymore.
not at all.
This is about trying to navigate the most dangerous, the most perilous landscape for inbox security we have ever seen. And it's all driven by, well, just unprecedented sophistication.
And that sophistication, that's the word right there.
Yeah.
It's the defining factor. And it is driven almost entirely by generative AI.
Right.
For decades, email security was a technical battle, right? It was
Okay.
malware, it was exploits. Now it has fundamentally changed.
It's March.
Has morphed into a psychological war.
A psychological war.
Yeah, it's mass-scale, automated manipulation of human judgment.
And that shift is exactly what's causing the entire security market to just scramble and, frankly, reprice risk completely. So, our mission today is tailored for you. We are diving deep into the global email security market landscape as we close out 2025 and head into 2026.
So if you're getting ready for a procurement review, if you're a CISO trying to figure out your layered defense,
Or maybe you're just the security-curious person in your organization who's been tasked with catching up. This is essentially your complete shortcut.
we really need to understand three core things here. First, there's this huge architectural shift from, the old school perimeter blocking to this new context-aware behavioral security.
Okay.
Second, who are the key vendors? From the huge platform anchors down to the really cutting-edge disruptors.
And third?
And third, the non-negotiable part, the compliance constraints, specifically FedRAMP and StateRAMP, because they dictate who federal and state agencies can actually buy from.
And when we talk about a scramble, we really mean it. The sources we're looking at show the global email security market was already pretty robust.
Yeah. Valued somewhere between, 4.68 cents and maybe $6.09 billion back in 2024. But the growth forecast, just look at it.
It's rocketing.
Projections show it going to anywhere from 10, maybe 11 billion to almost $20 billion by 2032.
That's a staggering compound annual growth rate, or CAGR. You're hovering between 10.9% and 14.0%.
And that kind of growth isn't just organic, is it?
No. It's a clear repricing of risk. Organizations are being forced to invest heavily because of the cost of failure. A successful SEC attack, for instance, has become catastrophic.
So cloud adoption started the problem.
It accelerated it, yeah. And now these sophisticated AI threats are forcing the expenditure to go and close those new gaps.
Which leads us to the core strategic point we see just repeated across every single analyst report. The market is no longer a single monolithic gateway that you buy. It's an ecosystem.
It's an ecosystem, exactly. You have to layer your defenses. Modern buyers are combining a strong platform anchor, which today is almost always Microsoft Defender for Office 365, with a specialized augmentation. And that augmentation is the behavioral piece.
That's the one. The behavioral or API-based solution that's designed specifically to stop social engineering. And then, optionally, you might layer a resilience or a compliance suite on top of that.
It's a layered defense model.
And if you are only running one layer, you are, frankly, exposing yourself to a huge amount of unnecessary risk.
Okay, let's unpack that threat landscape first, because that sense of urgency is the engine driving all that market growth. The new normal is what's being called AI-augmented deception. We're not just fighting malware anymore. We're fighting Gen AI being used for psychological manipulation.
This is the most crucial takeaway. For any security team listening, this is it. The battleground has moved from the technical stack to the human inbox.
Right.
Generative AI has weaponized credibility and context at scale.
And the most immediate and I think terrifying effect of that is the sudden, utter disappearance of bad grammar.
The end of bad grammar. That's what we call it. For years, we trained users to spot the awkward phrasing, the bizarre syntax,
The spelling mistakes.
the glaring spelling mistakes that signaled a phishing attempt from a non-native speaker or just a sloppy attacker.
All gone now.
Gone. Threat actors now use large language models, Gen AI, to get perfect syntax. And, more importantly, they get context-aware text.
So instead of that generic email asking for a wire transfer, the email now references a project you just talked about or a shared vendor.
Exactly. It lends it that immediate air of legitimacy.
It just eliminates all the easy, low-hanging fruit detection methods.
It does. It makes the attacker's job professional, scalable, and personalized without needing a human to put in effort for every single payload.
And that level of professionalism allows for the rise of what are called polymorphic attacks.
Hmm.
This is where the technical side really starts to hammer the old defenses. So how exactly does Gen AI create polymorphism, and why is that so devastating for the old systems?
So polymorphism just means many forms. Gen AI allows a threat actor to generate thousands, maybe tens of thousands, of variations of the same core email lure.
Okay, so give me an example.
All right, imagine a standard phishing email. It's designed to capture credentials. The AI will slightly alter the subject line. It'll change 5 words in the body text, tweak the call to hash, maybe adjust the sender domain for every single recipient.
So if a traditional defense, like a gateway, relies on identifying a known bad pattern, like a signature that says subject A plus body X equals bad,
Right.
none of these thousands of slight variations match that exact signature. They're all technically unique.
And they sail right through the perimeter defenses.
Wow.
It's a volume and variability game, and it's designed specifically to evade those signature-based systems. And the ultimate goal for most of this deception, it's still business email compromise.
EEC.
And the FBI numbers on this are sobering.
Yeah, the FBI's 2023 Internet Crime Report confirmed it.
BEC is the single most financially damaging cybercrime. It reached a staggering record loss of $2.9 billion.
That number alone should be dictating budget allocations for everyone, but it's the effectiveness of these new AI-powered attacks that's truly alarming.
The data is just brutal. Our sources show that AI-generated phishing emails have a 54% click-through rate.
54%.
54. Now, compare that to the 12% click-through rate you see for traditional low-effort campaigns.
So that's more than a 4x increase in effectiveness.
It is. We also know that 40% of all BEC attacks are now confirmed to be AI-generated. And the average loss per successful attack, it's about $128,980.
This isn't some fringe tactic anymore.
No, this is the dominant model for financial fraud now, and it targets specific people with very high velocity.
And the attack surface, it's not just the email body anymore either. It's moving beyond text to, well, the multimodal future of deception, specifically deepfakes and vishing.
Right. The risk is no longer just reading a deceptive email. It's participating in a deceptive conversation. Deepfake voice cloning is becoming trivial. An attacker needs just a few seconds of an executive's voice, which they can easily scrape from public videos or, company webinars.
And that clone is then used to
What?
bypass authentication.
Bypass voice authentication controls, or, more dangerously, to impersonate an executive urgently authorizing a wire transfer over the phone.
And the threat is jumping platforms, right? We're seeing this move out of the old VoIP calls and into our everyday collaboration tools. That seems much more insidious.
That's right. The emergence of meeting injection deepfake attacks in platforms like Teams and Zoom is a massive concern.
So what's the scenario there?
The scenario is this. A threat actor gets a meeting link. They join the call, often with their video off, and then they use a real-time deepfake audio or video filter to impersonate a senior executive who demands some immediate high-pressure action.
That's terrifying.
It has forced vendors like IronScales to introduce dedicated deepfake protection, which often relies on biometric verification during the call to make sure the person on screen is actually real.
It's a testament to how far we've moved from just scanning attachments.
A long way.
Okay, before we move on to architecture, let's touch on a couple of simpler but still highly effective evasive techniques. Let's talk about QR code phishing or quishing.
Quishing is a perfect example of how attackers abuse user trust. The QR code itself, when you embed it in an email, it bypasses the standard URL inspection tools.
Why is that?
Because the destination URL isn't visible in the email structure. It's encoded in an image. So when the user scans it with their phone, which we all do implicitly now, we see QR codes everywhere, they're sent immediately to a malicious landing page.
And the data shows this is not a small problem.
Not at all. These attacks increased by a massive 40% to 60% in early 2025. They now account for about 2.5% of all phishing attempts.
So it's a small percentage, but the growth rate is enormous.
Exactly. And then there's a more complex technique, one that's harder to defend against. It's called trusted infrastructure abuse.
Or living off trusted sites. Lots.
The LOTS approach. In this, attackers hide their malicious payload or link behind the reputation of a legitimate, widely trusted cloud provider, like a document sharing service or a collaboration platform.
So the email comes from a legitimate domain. It passes all the DMR, CSPF checks.
Correct. So the traditional email gateways, they see the link going to, say, SharePoint.com or Dropbox.com. They just pass it right through.
So the security system sees a trusted sender and a trusted domain, but the content shared through that trusted domain is the malicious part.
Precisely. And our sources indicate this accounts for a significant 8% of attacks.
That's a huge blind spot.
It demonstrates a profound failure of that pre-delivery perimeter-based security model, and it confirms why security architecture absolutely has to change. You have to address deception that's happening after the initial checks have already failed.
And that brings us perfectly to the tectonic shift in architecture. The decision today, it's no longer about what features you want, it's about where in the mail flow you want your security to operate. We're talking about the move from secure email gateways, or SEGs, to integrated cloud email security, or ICS solutions.
This architectural choice, this is the defining strategic dilemma for CISOs in 2026. The incumbents, the traditional players like Proofpoint, Mimecast, Barracuda, they still hold significant market share.
About 55.6% with SEGs, right?
Yeah, but that number is consistently declining. And the challengers, Abnormal, Sublime, Iron Scales, they represent the ICA solutions. And those are projected to grow dramatically faster. We're talking a 13.9% CAGR.
Let's deep dive into the legacy model first, the secure email gateways. For anyone not familiar, how do they fundamentally work? How do they filter mail?
The whole mechanism relies on perimeter control. Specifically, it relies on modifying the MX record, the mail exchange record, in your DNS configuration.
So you're rerouting all your mail.
You are. By changing that MX record, you force all inbound email traffic to pass through the vendor's cloud infrastructure before it ever gets to your Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace tenant. It's a front door approach designed for pre-delivery blocking.
It sounds a lot like a traditional firewall, but for email. So what are the undeniable advantages of operating at that perimeter?
The advantages are strong, particularly for, legacy organizations. You get robust perimeter control, deterministic blocking of known threats, pre-delivery sandboxing of attachments.
Meaning the malicious file never even enters your environment.
Exactly. And you get granular policy enforcement right at the edge of your network. For compliance models that demand 100% inspection before delivery, the SIG is still very powerful.
But as we discussed with the LOTS attacks and polymorphism, that SEG model is starting to show its age, especially in the cloud era. What are its key vulnerabilities?
There are three critical flaws, I'd say, almost fatal flaws in the modern context. First, and this is the most devastating one, they're completely blind to east-west traffic.
What do you mean by east-west traffic?
If an attacker compromises an internal user account, an account takeover or ATO, and then starts phishing other employees from within the network, that traffic skips the perimeter completely. The SEG never even sees it.
So if the big BEC attack is an internal CFO impersonation, the SEG is useless.
Totally useless.
Yeah.
Exactly. Second, SEGs add complexity and potential latency. You're inserting an extra hop in the delivery chain. And third, there's a serious architecture mismatch with cloud-native platforms like Microsoft 365.
Mismatch how?
It often requires a really complex setup, and it can potentially break native M365 features like internal mail routing or certain compliance logs. Analysts are confirming that 78% of organizations now believe AGIs are fundamentally incapable of fully protecting modern cloud environments.
Okay, that blindness to internal compromise, that has to be the single biggest driver of this architectural shift. So let's pivot hard to the challenger. Integrated Cloud Email Security, ICs.
ICs, or API-based solutions, they operate entirely differently. You have to forget the perimeter. They connect directly to the underlying platform, Microsoft 365 or Google via an API.
And critically, no MX record chains.
No MX record change. You can deploy them in parallel with your existing solution just to prove their value.
That frictionless deployment model is definitely appealing, but what are the deep technical advantages of operating inside the environment post-delivery?
The primary overriding advantage is contextual insight. Because the ICS solution connects through the platform's API, it gets deep access to the mailbox's metadata and its historical activity. We're talking historical sender data, recipient relationship graphs, login locations, time zones, device types, even the tone of voice used in past communications.
That's something a perimeter gateway could never, ever access. They just can't see the history.
Precisely. And this allows the AI to establish a behavioral baseline of what's normal for every single user. So any anomaly, like the normally casual CFO emailing the accounts payable team at 3 a.m. from a new country with sudden extreme urgency, that becomes immediately detectable as a sophisticated BEC attempt.
What other operational advantages does the API model offer?
Well, besides the rapid deployment we mentioned, the most critical operational advantage is post-delivery remediation.
Which means?
This includes the fast clawback of malicious messages, zero-hour auto-purge, or ZAP, which we'll talk more about with Microsoft, and the ability to retroactively hunt and remove emails after they've been delivered if a benign link is weaponized later on.
Oh.
The ICS solution can just run a retro hunt across all mailboxes and delete the threat in minutes, minimizing that exposure time.
It really sounds like API is the clear, future-proof winner. But let's be critical for a second. What are the vulnerabilities or the risks of the ICS model?
Okay, so they do rely heavily on the underlying platform, Microsoft or Google, for basic hygiene. They're designed to catch the advanced stuff, the phishing, the BEC, not the high-volume spam.
So if the native defenses fail spectacularly...
The API layer might be overwhelmed, yeah. Also, the risk shifts from network perimeter security to securing your API permissions and logging. And yes, there is the theoretical risk of API throttling by the cloud provider during an extremely high-volume attack, though vendors have built robust ways to mitigate this.
It's more a talking point than a real risk.
It's a talking point often used by seg vendors,
Mm-hmm.
but it's less of a practical risk today than it used to be.
Fascinating. Now, the market isn't static, right? We're seeing this major convergence, this hybrid reality where the lines are just blurring between these two architectural philosophies.
The pure gateway-only strategy is definitely dying. Legacy seg vendors are frantically adding API capabilities. Mimecast calls theirs cloud integrated, specifically to gain that internal east-west visibility they lacked.
And the API vendors are moving the other way.
Conversely, yeah. API vendors are expanding their feature sets, adding traditional seg functions like DLP, compliance features, and outbound encryption that are usually handled at the perimeter.
And yet, SEGs still hold about 40.8% of the global market share, so the idea that the SEG is completely obsolete is maybe a bit premature.
It is. So who should still be using a seg? Organizations that require strict inline inspection for regulatory compliance, or those managing really complex pre-cloud or hybrid mail flows with specific legacy requirements.
But for most cloud-first organizations.
So the vast majority, the need for a complementary layer is just undeniable.
And this brings us right back to the core strategic justification for this entire augmentation market, the failure rate of the native platform itself.
It's exactly. This is the foundational driver for all that investment we talked about. Analyst notes confirm that Microsoft 365 native security alone, while it's a necessary baseline, has a high miss rate for advanced threats.
How high are we talking?
We're talking a 47% miss rate for general phishing, a 70% miss rate for business email compromise, and a staggering 87% miss rate for conversation hijacking.
Wow.
These statistics confirm it. The platform anchor needs a specialized third-party layer to address this new wave of AI-driven deception.
So if the native platform is the essential first layer, but it's fundamentally insufficient, we need to look at that augmentation layer. This brings us to the players who are dominating the space. The prevailing strategy today is the Microsoft +1 approach. Something like 63% of enterprises are now adopting this.
That layered defense is critical, and you can visualize it as 3 distinct layers. You have the native platform anchor, then the specialized behavioral detection layer, and finally, their resilience or compliance adjacencies.
Let's start with the anchor, the default baseline for most organizations, Microsoft Defender for Office 365, MDO.
Microsoft is the platform leader, no question. They're often named a Gartner leader for 2 consecutive years, purely because of their integration power. Their strategy is simple and strategic. They want email security to be invisible and native.
Deeply integrated with M365, with their XDR, with identity and endpoint security tools.
All of it. They want it to be seamless.
So what are the core features MDO brings to the table that make it that non-negotiable default baseline?
MDO provides really strong basic hygiene and core protections. Key features include safe attachments, which uses dynamic sandboxing to detonate suspicious files in a safe environment before they're delivered.
Right.
Then there's Safe Links, which offers time-of-click URL protection. It scans the link when the user actually clicks it, not just when the email arrives.
And that extends across the whole M365 ecosystem, right? Teams, SharePoint.
Crucially, yes. It stops the link sharing of malicious content there, too. And of course, ZAP, Zero or Auto Purge, which is their automated post-delivery purge mechanism.
We've seen Microsoft investing billions and billions in Gen AI. What is their future vision centered on, especially with that investment?
It's all centered on Security Copilot. This is their Gen AI assistant designed for the security analyst. It lets the SOC team perform really complex threat hunting using just natural language.
So instead of writing complex queries...
An analyst can just type, Show me all users who clicked on a malicious link from that center domain in the last 72 hours and draft a response script for me.
So it automates the incident summaries and the initial response scripts. It frees up the human analyst to do more complex work.
Exactly. It's an acceleration engine for the entire SOC, and it confirms Microsoft's move toward making security operations highly automated, leveraging AI across all of their modules, not just email.
Okay, moving from the platform anchor to the traditional enterprise fortress. Proofpoint. They protect 85% of the Fortune 100. That gives them immense institutional gravity and scale.
Proofpoint remains the industry leader by reputation and scale. They consistently rank high in execution, holding the #1 spot in 4 out of 5 critical capabilities. The sheer depth of their visibility across the world's largest enterprises gives their threat intelligence feeds immense predictive power.
They are definitely fighting off that legacy seg label, though,
Thank-
primarily through aggressive mergers and acquisitions, correct?
Absolutely. Proofpoint executed a really critical strategic pivot. They acquired Tessian, a leading behavioral AI specialist.
That was a huge deal.
It was key. It plugged their architectural gap. It gave them that API-based internal visibility they needed to fight east-west traffic and sophisticated BSC that their traditional SEG perimeter might miss.
And what about their more recent moves into the mid-market?
The acquisition of Hornet Security signals an aggressive pivot into the SMB and MSP markets, which challenges players like Barracuda and IronScales directly. They're building a full-spectrum offering from the Fortune 100 all the way down to the small business.
So their flagship Aegis platform is now a true full-spectrum hybrid model.
Yes. Aegis now combines the traditional SIG's perimeter stopping power, that high-volume pre-delivery filtering, with the ICIVI internal behavioral visibility they got from Tessian.
And what are the key capabilities there?
Key capabilities include their Nexus AI engine for LLM-based detection and their highly effective Very Attacked People, or VAP identification.
Let's clarify VAP. Why is identifying a very attacked person so critical?
VAP identification tags users who are disproportionately targeted by threat actors. This is off of the C-suite, finance, HR teams.
The high-value targets.
The high-value targets. Proofpoint then automatically applies the highest level of scrutiny and stricter policies to those specific mailboxes. It makes policy deployment risk-aware and highly targeted, rather than just a blanket approach across the whole organization. Their pre-delivery URL sandboxing also remains a key technical differentiator from the pure API-only vendors.
Okay, next, let's talk Mimecast, an established leader who seems to be changing its entire identity toward what they call human risk management, or HRM.
Mimecast is an established leader not just in email security but also in digital communications governance and archiving. Their pivot to HRM is an acknowledgement that the human user is, statistically, the new security perimeter.
So if you can measure and manage human behavior,
You manage the largest risk vector.
and they have been extremely busy with acquisitions to build out that human risk platform beyond just email filtering.
They really have. They've pivoted from a purely filtering and archiving company to a comprehensive risk platform. Key acquisitions include Code 42 Insider, which focuses on insider risk management and data loss prevention.
DLP, right?
They acquired Elevate Security for a risk scoring engine, letting them dynamically score user risk. And they acquired Aware to extend security to collaboration tools like Teams and Slack, which proves they understand the multimodal nature of the modern workspace.
Their classic differentiators, though, have always been those resilience and compliance adjacencies.
That's their strong point, for sure. They are famous for their resilience suite, particularly email continuity, which ensures mail flow remains uninterrupted even during major outages. And their comprehensive archiving and e-discovery capabilities are essential for heavily regulated organizations.
And they offer both deployment models.
Both cloud gateway and cloud integrated, offering maximum flexibility for customers who are mid-migration.
Finally, let's turn to Barracuda Networks, the champion of the mid-market and managed service providers, MSPs.
Barracuda is consistently positioned as a visionary. They're focused heavily on the SMB and mid-market segment. Their value proposition really centers on ease of use, accessible price points, and what they term comprehensive reliability.
So they aim to be the solution that provides high-level security without requiring a massive dedicated security team.
That's the goal.
What specific capabilities resonate most with that resource-constrained market segment?
Flexibility is key. They offer both inline SEG and API deployment options. Their AI-powered impersonation protection is heavily marketed, with claims that it blocks 70% more BEC attempts than native security alone.
But for the mid-market, the automation must be critical.
Crucially, yes, it's their automated incident response.
Let's define that clearly. What does automated incident response or a built-in SOAR capability mean for an IT team of, say, 5 people?
SO stands for Security Orchestration, Automation, and Response. For a small team, it means Barracuda provides built-in playbooks and automation. Fast search and destroy remediation across all mailboxes.
So instead of manually checking 100 mailboxes for a reported fish,
The built-in SO module automates the quarantine, the retroactive hunting, and the removal process. It's critical when you lack a large, dedicated security operations center team. It's a force multiplier for IT staff.
okay, so if that section was about the established players modernizing, this next one is about the pure play innovators who are driving the future. The core theme here seems to be the race for agentic automation. The market split is no longer just gateway versus API, but detect more versus operate better. And the better is defined by eliminating human interaction for routine tasks.
The need for this automation is driven by the sheer speed and volume of AI attacks. The industry goal is what we call closed-loop security operations.
So from start to finish.
The entire life cycle, from a user reporting a suspicious email, through auto triage, containment, retro hunting, and user coaching, all of it completed autonomously. The manual SOC triage for routine email tickets is, frankly, considered dead by these disruptors.
And leading that automation charge is abnormal security, often called the AI native disruptor. They're pure API-based, focusing exclusively on behavioral context to stop social engineering.
Abnormal is positioned as an AI native leader. They're furthest on the completeness of vision axis and analyst reports, largely because of their focus on innovation. They're well-funded, hitting a $5.1 billion valuation in 2024.
And their core thesis is simple.
Very simple. BEC and vendor email compromise are behavioral problems, and only behavioral context models can solve them. Their success stems from their ability to identify these tiny anomalies in communication patterns that a traditional gateway would just completely ignore.
And their big innovation in 2025 went beyond just detection. They launched autonomous AI agents for the SOC. How do these agents function in the real world?
That's the true game changer. These agents move beyond simple alerts. They act autonomously to verify or remediate.
Give me an example.
Okay, so if the AI detects an extremely suspicious email impersonating the CFO asking for an urgent change in bank details, the agent can autonomously reach out to the actual CFO through a trusted channel like Teams or Slack with a message like, "Did you just request an urgent wire transfer to this new vendor? Reply yes or no."
And then based on that verified response, the agent proceeds with full remediation or marks the email as safe, all without a human analyst ever touching the ticket.
Correct. Abnormal claims this dramatically reduces the SOC workload, sometimes by as much as 50%, and fully automates the often tedious process of abuse mailbox triage. It is pure closed-loop security response.
So if abnormal represents the powerful, results-driven black box AI approach, where you trust the results without seeing the code, Sublime Security is the complete antithesis, the glass box alternative.
Sublime is an emerging disruptor, and they appeal very strongly to security-mature organizations, particularly those with internal development capabilities or those that just reject the opaque nature of traditional AI. Their whole philosophy is detection as code.
Which provides transparency into the detection logic.
Right. Instead of just saying, trust our proprietary model, they give you the code.
So how does that transparency actually manifest in Sublime's technical capabilities?
They use a proprietary language called Message Query Language, or MQL. This is revolutionary because it allows users, the customer's own security team, to write precise, highly customizable rules for threat hunting.
So a customer could write a rule that says, what?
For example, they could write an MQL rule that says, alert us instantly on any email containing a QR code that links to a domain registered in the last 48 hours.
That level of customization and auditability must be hugely valuable for governance and compliance.
It is GRC gold. Furthermore, they also have their own autonomous agent, the Autonomous Detection Engineer, or AD. The AD automatically analyzes new, emerging attack patterns, it writes new detection rules in MQL, and then it backtests those rules against the customer's historical mail data before submitting them for human approval.
Which cuts the detection timeline from weeks to hours.
Mere hours, yeah.
And they offer a unique deployment model, don't they?
They do. They leverage a community-driven open-source rule set, and critically for regulated environments, Sublime offers a self-hosted option. They can be deployed within the customer's virtual private cloud, their VPC.
Meaning the mail data never leaves the customer's sovereign cloud environment.
Exactly. This is a huge differentiator for privacy-conscious or highly regulated entities.
Finally, let's look at iron scales. They're positioned as the pioneer of human-machine teaming, focusing on adaptive AI paired directly with human intelligence.
Iron Scales is recognized as a visionary. With a very strong foothold in the SMB and MSP markets, their differentiation is their adaptive AI, which leverages crowdsourced community intelligence from over 25,000 SOC analysts globally.
So when one analyst somewhere confirms a zero-day phishing attack is malicious.
That intelligence is immediately shared across the entire community in real time.
So it's a network effect for zero-day protection.
That's it. You get proactive protection based on collective human judgment, accelerated by AI. And as we mentioned earlier, they are aggressively addressing the deepfake and phishing problem.
Right, there's specialized deepfake protection for Microsoft Teams.
This is a crucial cutting-edge feature. It uses biometric verification to address those highly sophisticated phishing and meeting injection attacks. Their platform also incorporates Themis Copilot, their own AI assistant for autonomous remediation, and it integrates security awareness training directly into the workflow.
So the human element is constantly being trained and validated.
It's a complete human-centric risk management loop.
Okay, this is perhaps the most important section for anyone in the public sector, defense, or highly regulated industries like finance and healthcare. We've established that the coolest technology is strategically useless if it doesn't have the authorized stamp.
That's the bottom line.
Compliance is a first-class requirement that just gates the market.
For S-lead state, local, and education and federal procurement, the authorization scope is the non-negotiable first-class requirement. The ability to comply with these stringent government standards dictates market success far more than any incremental technical superiority.
Let's explain the foundational federal requirement, FedRAMP, a federal risk and authorization management program.
FedRAMP basically standardizes the security assessment and continuous monitoring process for any cloud service used by U.S. federal agencies. It's broken down by impact levels based on data sensitivity.
So you have low, moderate, and high.
Right. Low is for non-critical public information. Moderate is the standard requirement, accounting for about 80% of all cloud authorizations. That's for systems where data loss might cause serious adverse effects. And then high is reserved for sensitive, mission-critical data, typically found in defense or intelligence.
And beyond the federal level, the individual states created their own solution, which is now harmonizing.
Yes. The state, local, and education entities rely on StateRAMP, which has recently started rebranding to GovRAMP. Its primary strategic goal is harmonization with FedRAMP to achieve reciprocity.
Let's pause on reciprocity. For the listener who isn't steeped in government procurement, what does verify once, use many actually save them? Is it just money or is it speed?
It's primarily speed, which translates directly into cost savings and faster modernization. If a cloud vendor has already been rigorously audited and authorized by one agency, say, the DoD for FedRAMP High and other state government, like Florida, can adopt that exact same authorized service.
And that slashes the procurement timeline.
Slashes it from maybe 18 months down to 3 months. It drastically reduces the redundant assessment burden for both the vendors and the buyers.
So now let's look at the strategic authorization status of the key vendors, starting with the baseline standard.
Microsoft Defender for Office 365 is authorized high, specifically within the highly secure GCC High and DoD environments. This makes MDO the default mandatory baseline for most high-sensitivity federal agencies.
And Proofpoint.
Proofpoint is the established safe choice. They hold FedRAMP Moderate Authorization for their core email protection, TAP, and archive products. They are the benchmark for third-party compliance.
And here is where the market landscape saw its most critical shift in 2025. What about the API native disruptors?
This is the critical update you need to know. Abnormal Security achieved FedRAMP Moderate Authorization in April 2025.
That is a huge deal.
It's a watershed moment. Before this, federal agencies and many large regulated enterprises, they couldn't credibly adopt API native behavioral security. They were forced to rely on SEG architectures that struggled with BEC.
So Abnormal can now credibly challenge Proofpoint's dominance in the federal space by offering a specialized behavioral solution that is authorized to hold moderate impact data.
Absolutely. The door swung wide open for them. Mimecast also holds a moderate authorization, specifically for its Code 42 insider threat product, which helps their human risk management story in the public sector.
And Barracuda.
Barracuda is also authorized moderate, They typically leverage the AWS ATO on ATO program for their AWS GovCloud offerings.
Define the ATO on ATO program for us.
An authorization to operate, or ATO, is the formal compliance approval. AWS GovCloud already has a comprehensive ATO. The ATO on ATO program allows Barracuda to inherit a significant portion of AWS's existing security controls, which streamlines and accelerates their own authorization process.
Making them a compliant choice for mid-market and state government buyers who prefer that cloud environment.
Exactly.
So what does this mandatory compliance framework mean for the cutting-edge players like Sublime Security and Iron Scales?
It acts as a significant constraint. The market is effectively gated. Vendors like Sublime and Iron Scales currently lack a direct listing on the public FedRAMP or StateRAMP marketplaces. This severely restricts their immediate addressable market in the broader public sector.
Regardless of how superior their technology might be.
It doesn't matter.
So if a player like Sublime is currently outside the FedRAMP gate, what is their primary strategic play for regulated buyers? Are they just targeting the commercial market?
They're maximizing the appeal of their self-hosted VPC deployment option. By allowing the customer to keep the data within their own virtual private cloud, their sovereign cloud environment, it mitigates some of the external data handling risks.
It doesn't replace a full FedRAMP ATO.
It doesn't.
Ah.
But it makes them a viable choice for regulated entities that desperately need that glass box transparency and superior threat hunting, provided they can manage the self-hosted environment and the associated compliance paperwork.
So if you are a federal agency or a large regulated enterprise today, what is the practical framework recommendation based on compliance and effectiveness?
You start with Microsoft Defender, High via GCC High, or Proofpoint Moderate as the rock-solid baseline anchor. But the option is now clear. You can, and often must, layer an ICE solution, like the newly authorized abnormal security on top, to get that sophisticated behavioral context you need to fight AI-driven BEC without compromising your compliance scope.
This deep dive has revealed a market in just radical, necessary transition. So let's synthesize the core findings for you. The fundamental decision today is no longer about stopping known threats. It is about choosing the correct architectural fit, moving from the perimeter seg to the contextual ICS model, and matching the speed and sophistication of your defenses to the AI-powered threat.
The trend is moving decisively toward ICS because of its superior contextual insight. Only deep contextual behavioral analysis, the kind that understands login history, relationship graphs, normal tone, can effectively stop these highly sophisticated AI-generated social engineering threats.
Like BEC and vendor email compromise.
Which are now, statistically, the most financially devastating attacks out there.
So let's leave our listeners with a clear, actionable path forward, a recommended layered defense model that utilizes the strengths we've discussed.
You should immediately move toward a formalized layered defense model. Establish Microsoft Defender as the anchor for baseline hygiene, anti-malware, and native integration across M365.
That's layer one.
Then you must augment that with a specialized behavioral AI layer, whether that's abnormal, Proofpoint's adaptive solution from Teshin, or a transparent system like Sublime. You need that to ensure advanced context-aware threat detection and to enable the necessary level of agentic automation.
If you're building a procurement or an architecture plan right now, what is the next actionable step, moving beyond just simple feature comparisons?
The next step is creating a detailed, weighted scorecard. Move past the glossy vendor features and prioritize a few key things. 1. Threat coverage, specifically your effectiveness against BCFX, QR quishing, and internal conversation hijacking. 2. Post-delivery response, the speed and efficacy of automated features like ZAP and your retro hunt capabilities. 3. Operational efficiency. How much SOC workload is demonstrably reduced by the solution's built-in automation, the SA or AI agents. And 4. The mandatory GRC check, verifying the exact FedRAMP or StateRAMP scope and evidence. Be aware, this compliance check often eliminates half the shortlist immediately, making it the most practical gating factor.
And that brings us to our final provocative thought. We've established that this AI arms race is now dictating the pace of security innovation. It's forcing defenses to become autonomous. So if autonomous AI agents like those from Abnormal or Sublime ZD are becoming standard for detection, triage, and remediation, you have to ask yourself, what is the role of the human security analyst in the inbox defense loop 2 years from now?
If the AI is handling 90% of the triage, the hunting, and the remediation of known and common attack types, the human role shifts entirely. The analyst's value moves from brute force ticket closing to strategic intelligence.
Auditing the AI's logic.
Auditing the AI's logic, questioning its decisions, and focusing exclusively on novel, zero-day, and highly complex threat vectors that still require human ingenuity. It's a necessary evolution of the role, but it's one that security leaders must actively plan for today.
A compelling challenge to end on. Thank you for diving deep with us into the AI-powered war for your inbox. We hope you feel significantly more informed and ready to choose your next layer of defense.